Joining us is Niezi Osakwe with stories trending around the world. Hello, Annie.
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
Annie from Ogidi.
Annie from Ogidi is back.
Our Anambra girl.
Yes, Anambra girl. In Demile, north or south?
North. We talked about it yesterday.
Very good. I was just testing you.
So let's get started. So good morning to everyone watching. Thank you all for starting your day with us. We start what's trending today with a big announcement from the governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, and the signing of a $62 million MOU, a memorandum of understanding between Nigeria and Kuwait. The goal of this MOU is to reach out to out-of-school children in Kaduna State, and it's historic. It's the Kuwait Fund's first ever intervention here in Nigeria, and big picture, the need for more schools and more money towards education is there.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Telecast TV. I'm Miracle Angalan. You're watching trending news around the world. Governor of Kaduna State, Uba Sani, in the signing of $62 million MOU, Memorandum of Understanding between Nigeria and Kuwait. The goal of this MOU is to reach out to the out-of-school children in Kaduna State. Secondly, 21 foreigners in Nigeria that are about to get deported out of the country. They are being found guilty of high level of cybercrime and money laundering. They are to pay a fine of 1 million naira each. The defendants are from China, Indonesia, Brazil, and among others that were arraigned last year. Thirdly, the U.S. Department of Justice has extradited a Nigerian man, Chukwuemeka Victor Amachukwu, to the U.S. from France because of hacking, fraud, and identity theft. Endeavor to watch to the end. Don't forget to hit that notification bell, subscribe, like, comment, share your thoughts. Don't miss trending videos.
In a post on X, the governor says that over 18 million children in Nigeria are still out of school. He adds that this project will deliver 102 climate resilient schools, rehabilitate 170 learning centers, focusing on school safety, inclusive learning environments, and the reintegration of girls, children with disabilities, and internally displaced children. So for clarity, a memorandum of understanding is not a definite legally binding agreement, but it is a first step in that direction. So I'll take, everyone's reaction to this, but Vimbai, let's start with you because I think it's especially important to talk about the impact this might have if it eventually gets to that legally binding stage.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that it serves to be a game changer if we're able to follow through on it. And, we have a history of getting commitments, having promises made, pledges made with regards to investment and even support and so forth. It doesn't always materialize. So I think it'll be up to us as journalists to follow this process and to hold the powers that be accountable so we can know what happened to it. But in general, we know that the issue with out-of-school children is a big issue in Nigeria. Nigeria has the highest number of out-of-school children in the world. And we know that the concentration of that is in the northern states of Nigeria. Now, if we can begin to work to mitigate that, and if this work can be done and as it should be at the subnational level, because where education is concerned, a lot of that burden falls on the subnational. And there's always controversy, I'm not saying in Kaduna State, but generally across the states, controversy about some of these funds, especially education-related funds, that don't get used. You have children in dilapidated schools, if at all. There's also issues around security where the schools are concerned. We've had so many issues around children being abducted and kidnapped by terrorists and so forth in the various schools. And this contributes to out-of-school children because once school is not a safe place to be, then you're going to stay at home. So if we can follow through with this, then I think it's a massive one. I think Governor Uba Sani has consistently hit all the right notes with regards to governance in his state. He's done all that needs to be done with regards to ensuring that the state is less toxic, if I may call it that. There's drastically reduced reports of insecurity, of the killings we used to hear about and so forth. And if we can introduce education into that, then we know that a lot of that insecurity and illegality will also reduce. So I really think this is a good one. Kudos to him. And I hope that this $62 million fund can be seen to fruition because, wow, that is a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
So the question I'd like to ask is, out of which school? Because when it comes to the North, the dynamic is different. Is it out of formal education, British Orthodoxy education or Western Orthodoxy education, or out of Quranic school? Because the argument I see a lot of people make is that a child might not go to your formal Western education, but might go to Quranic school, which is also a form of education. At first, we need to get data. Before we even started, it's not about the money. It's about the data. Today, there's still a dispute on the number of out-of-school children. You ask somebody in government, they tell you 10 million. You ask somebody, they tell you 12 million. We need to get data first. Secondly, out of which school? Because those that have said, that go through the Almajiri system, they'll tell you it's a form of education too. Are the methods questionable? Yes. So the question is, can we also have a system of pedagogy that brings that Western education into people that go to Quranic school, which is a cultural and a religious form of education, which to a large extent I argue that we should be able to mix both. Because when you go through the historical antecedents of schools, and I mean the first university on this flank, one of the first universities in the 1500s, the Senkore University in Mali, it used to be a mosque that was stunned. And that's why when you talk about the Timbuktu library, the lost libraries of Timbuktu, it was a form of education, but it wasn't the Western form of education. So at first, secondly, we need to develop a pedagogy model and how it's going to work. Thirdly, how will the money be deployed? So you've made the point about infrastructure, security. We always hear that narrative. In fact, at a point in this school, we had something called the Safe School Initiative that the likes of Gordon Brown came to launch in this country. What happened to it? It's a case of Pabo to the Pabolo Jasi. So it's not for the want of spending money. Former British Prime Minister came to launch that thing here. Have we been able to sustain it? Those are questions we should answer. Afterwards, then, who are those that are going to champion it? Do we have enough teachers? What's the welfare of those teachers? Then, what will be our approach to the society itself? Cultural methods. There are parents that can't afford anything. The reason some kids drop out of school is because of the economic situation. So you also have to look at that. So it has to be an holistic methodological approach. So when you look at this 62 million, the question I like to ask is, what is the money going to be spent on? Break down the line items. I don't like hearing this big MOU, because there was also something in the news yesterday when we were talking about where we're going to take about 25 million loan from Kuwait in funds for education. What is it? What's the line item of the spending? The word out of school is very nebulous.
Absolutely. So on to our next story. Right now, you have 21 foreigners in Nigeria that are about to get deported out of the country after being found guilty of high-level cybercrime. A federal high court in Abuja said they reached a plea deal between these 21 foreigners and the Nigeria police force. So now they've been ordered to immediately leave Nigeria and pay a fine of 1 million naira each. They're part of a larger group of 109 foreigners being prosecuted by the Inspector General of Police over charges like cybercrime, money laundering, and actions considered threats to Nigeria's national security. The defendants are from countries like China, Indonesia, and Brazil, among others, and they were arraigned last year. So we'll look at one more story on this topic, because meanwhile, the U.S. Department of Justice has just extradited a Nigerian man, Chukwuemeka Victor Amachukwu, to the U.S. from France because of hacking, fraud, and identity theft. In a statement from the Southern District of New York, they say that, as alleged, Amachukwu took part in a scheme to hack into U.S. tax businesses, trade in the stolen identifying information of victims, and defraud the IRS and other governmental bodies. Amachukwu also allegedly took part in a separate fraud scheme that promised his victims valuable investments that did not, in fact, exist. They add, if you are attempting to enrich yourself by scamming Americans from behind a keyboard, the FBI, with our extensive law enforcement partnerships, is willing and able to bring you to the U.S. and face justice. According to them, all of these schemes started in 2019, and Amachukwu worked with co-conspirators And they all made around $3 million in this time period. And if we look at these two stories together, it's interesting to kind of juxtapose a group of foreigners in Nigeria running scam operations with a group of Nigerians running scam operations targeting foreigners. So, I think we heard from, Vimbai and Rufai, so I'll start with you. What's your reaction to this?
Well, I think it's a very interesting story because on its face, we're looking at the prosecution of crime, which is something that happens all over the world that should be commended because a just and normally functioning society should not be, of course, devoid of crime, but where there is crime, people should be prosecuted. So on its face, it's a good thing when we look at the first story, which is the foreigners here in Nigeria being persecuted for committing a plethora of crimes, cyber crimes, money laundering, absolutely. They should be brought to book, punished, and if they are deported off the back of that, so be it. With this case, which is a bit more international, of course, that brings into questions about extradition treaties and what the relationship between the United States and France is. But clearly, this is a person, this Nigerian man, who has constituted crimes or is accused of doing these crimes that have affected both people in both countries. It is interesting. It is coincidental that we're talking about cybercrime and different scales of it, but I do find I am uncomfortable when there always seems to be a reputation that Nigerians are more likely to commit these types of crimes when it's not actually the case. Absolutely, we do have a stereotypical reputation for it, but as your stories have shown, this is something that is not just a Nigerian crime, it's not just an African crime, and should be adequately prosecuted across board. So we'll just have to see how that goes from there.
Very true.
I want to know what's happening to Hush Puppy.
Oh,
right. I want to know what's happening to Hush Puppy.
Absolutely. They're all part of the same thread. So